Hi. So I wanted to create a video, quick video. I'll try and keep it quick. They usually end up a lot longer because I rant like this. But I wanted to create a video about self-coaching. So I am a coach. I help people through all sorts of problems in life. I help them achieve their goals. I help them think more clearly, etc. And there's no real replacement for having an objective observer such as a coach help you find your blind spots and believe in you relentlessly and point out and challenge you when you're engaging in self-doubt or excuses or victim mindset, etc. But there is something that you can do called self-coaching, or I call it self-coaching. I do it every day. I make a practice of doing this with myself every day. Where you can do a big part of what a coach does, which is ask yourself questions and structure your thinking around a certain topic in a way that goes from problem thinking to solutions thinking, as well as giving you a good idea of where you are at currently with your reality, steps forward, like I said, solutions thinking, and some troubleshooting in advance of taking those steps to ensure your commitment. With that all out of the way, let's get started. So here on my screen, I have the template. So this is the process I will go through each and every time I self-coach. I'm going to go through it with you using an example, but trying to keep it as quick as possible. So essentially, there are four main parts. Answering questions under the heading of what do I want? Answering questions under the heading of what is the current reality? What are my options? And then what will I do? What will I commit to? Those are the four sections. You can see there are sub-questions within each, but those are the four parts you're going to lead yourself through to get from problem or desire to want. Where are you right now? And what does that gap look like? What are the options you can take to fill that gap? And which of those options are you definitely going to take? Usually one or two you really nail down. We'll stick with one. Before we get started, it's important to make some notes here, and I'll reference back to these. Number one, flow with it. This is stream of consciousness thinking. This is not being written so that anyone else can see it, or so that you can publish it, or so that it can impress somebody. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. I'm watching my puppy eat some paper. Hope she doesn't choke. Stream of consciousness, just like that. Then, whatever comes out, get it on paper, say it out loud, whatever you. I'll go into that in a second, but no editing. Tangents are allowed. Go off on a tangent, and then come back to the structure. That's fine. Explore it to its depth. See the thought through. This is what structured thinking is about. It's not the flitty day-to-day mind of, when you think inside your head, it's usually very unstructured. If you really sit down and notice your thought process, you'll notice that your monkey mind is jumping from this to that to, in 1 second it'll jump from what is the point of my life to have I done the dishes? So we're trying to take the powerful process of the mind, put some structure to it. Okay. Number two, write or speak and record, if you are speaking, your thoughts. Okay. This cannot be just your internal mind working, your internal voice. Do not rely on that. It is completely unreliable. So I actually make the process of writing everything out. So under each heading, for example, what does the ideal outcome look like? X, Y, Z, but what about, and I'll just literally write down what I'm thinking. If you want to save a bit of time, or if you don't think writing is conducive to your flow, what I'd recommend you doing is asking yourself these questions and then just sticking your phone on record or your computer on record as you ask these, and then ask and answer. So record, what do I want? What does the ideal outcome look like? Well, I'd really like to get a job working for an associate coaching company. Okay, great. And then keep going through, and then at the end of each section, just write, if you are recording, just write a little summary. So what do I want? To have enough spare time to focus on getting associate positions with large coaching organizations. I can hear my puppy tearing something apart. 1 second. Harry? No. Okay. And the other key part here is to write down all of your options. So note down, don't just record, note down, make a note of all of your options, because options are an exhaustive list. Okay? You want to write down as many options as possible before you lock in on action. So when you get to the point about options, write them all down, and I'll get to that with you. And then, of course, write down and say what you will do, and we'll get to that. Okay. Ultimately, point 3, ultimately the process is different every time. You will answer different questions, different sub-questions each time. You will jump around. You know, sometimes you get to options and you're like, okay, it's about prioritizing. Let's make a list of priorities. Sometimes you'll just get, you know, very often, in fact, you'll nail down what you want. You will go through the reality of your current situation. And at some point in that process, you'll realize actually the goal has changed. In that case, go back up to number 1, start again. What do I want? Go through those sub questions again. It's very common for people to not spend enough time focusing on part 1 and part 2, especially part 1. People don't define their goal clearly enough. So I encourage you to spend a lot of time figuring out what your goal is, what you really want out of this self-coaching session. So what is the ideal outcome of this self-coaching session look like? Okay. And you might be coming back to that a couple of times. That's common. Don't worry about that. As long as you open with what do I want, like I've said here, and you mostly end up closing with what will I do, you're doing it right. Sometimes you will get through what do I want, what is the current reality, etc., and realize that this goal isn't really important to you, or it's not the right goal, or there's no real options, there's no passion there. Totally fine, happens in real coaching sessions as well. At least you know what another thing that you don't want. You know, you're not going to worry about it anymore. It's a great way to remove anxieties. So finally, number 4, be exhaustive with options. The idea is you get a list of options that are completely exhaustive, you know, from the really obvious, easy ones to ones that are incredibly hard and challenging and create a lot of fear, to all the way to the most ridiculous, silly ones like, I want to get an association with a large coaching organization, so I'm going to dress up like a pink elephant, stand outside the London office of one of these organizations and swing my snout around. Whatever, just get it all down. Okay, so with that over, let's briefly go through these sections then. And if you want, by the way, I will send you a template, this template that I have here, save you copying it all down. So number 1, what do I want? This is the most important part. This is where you define the goal of the coaching session, self-coaching session. Coaches will always do this in real sessions. Very important, always skipped over, spend a lot of time here. What is the ideal outcome of this coaching session? What does that look like? So for example, I want to something around getting associate positions with large coaching organizations, which I've written here. When I have achieved this, what will I be feeling, seeing, hearing? Pretty obvious. What will I be feeling? What will I be seeing? What's changed in my life? What will I be hearing from others? What part of that is most important to me? That's really key. You know, quite often the ideal outcome or the goal will be a big fluffy thing. You get it down into something that's really important, put it into 1 sentence, condensed version. My example here, to have enough spare time to focus on getting associate positions with large coaching organizations. Great. That's perfect. Okay, what is the current reality? Well, this is really important because you need to know where you are now in order to know what the distance between where you are now and where you need to go. That sounds pretty simple. This is the bit that most people miss out when they are trying to solve their own problems, or when you're in casual day-to-day conversation. It goes something like, oh, my boss today called me X, Y, and Z. He's completely wrong. I'm going to quit, right? We need to know the current reality, delve deeper into the current reality. What is my current situation? What is happening right now? For example, right now, I'm chock-a-block. I've got sessions all day, every day. I don't have time to focus on other areas of business. Okay, keep going. How is that affecting me? Answer that, so the sub-question here is, how does that affect me? How important is that to me? Very important. I want to create a long-lasting business. Another great question here. Where am I on a scale of 1 to 10 in achieving my goal? Use that one. It's really good. It never gets old. What is stopping me moving up the scale? What are my current priorities? Great questions. You really need to know all of this and able to move forward and develop your options. And before moving on to 3, what are my options? You will already have started to build a list naturally whilst talking about your reality of current options. So for example, as I was saying to myself, I'm chock-a-block with sessions day to day, the option occurs to me, okay, number 1, book less sessions per week. When I was looking at what's stopping moving up the scale, it's time. Okay, create time to work on other business development. Quite vague, but we'll get to when we get to options, which we are now. The general question: what could I do? What are my options? List out as many as you can that you originally think of. So. Google list of companies, call directors, create video showing my USP. Just keep going. How could I move just 1 point up the scale? That is a really good question, because we want to be thinking action. We want to be thinking momentum. We want to start making small progress right now, not massive. We've got the big goal. Now we want to take. We want options and experiments and small actions we can take towards that. Okay. So, how can I move just 1 point up the scale? Smallest thing I could do: just email the general enquiries line at XYZ Coaching Corp. Who could help me? Great. This is focusing on resources. Who could help me here? Okay, what connections do I have? I'm not going to write that down, obviously, because I don't want to make this too personal, but what connections do you have that could help you? Who can help keep you accountable? My partner can keep me accountable if I tell her. I'm just going to put that in as a sub-question. Who could keep me accountable? Usually in a coaching session, of course, when it's one-to-one coaching, the accountability partner is the coach, but I always like to ask who else they can get involved as well. You obviously don't have an accountability partner here, so great question. Imagine, this is really important, okay? You want to put yourself in the position of having already achieved this goal, really be there, get there, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years in the future. Imagine I've already achieved this. What did I do to get there? Look back. What was the number one? What was the most important insight or action that got me there? Great question. Really great question. Use your future self to look back and see how that was solved. If there was anything else, anything at all, what would it be? And this is the part where you get exhausted. Just keep going. You know, what else? What else? What else? All right, then you've got this list. And at this point, puppy's just swallowed some paper. Still breathing. If forget the puppy, if this is a good session and they aren't all good, at this point you'll probably be feeling quite confident. You'll have quite a lot of clarity, brimming with possibility, because you've turned into a solutions mindset. You've stopped focusing on the problem. You start focusing on the solution. You're probably fairly buzzing, so just get everything out here. Something's probably starting to seem like the best option, something to really focus in on. And if it's a bigger one, like create time to work on other business development, if it's quite a vague option, the will section down here will really help. Also, if it's a very specific option, like just email generate inquiries line, again, the will section will really help. So, on to the part 4. What will I do? Let's get specific. Let's take the example of create time to work on other business development, because if we do that, it'll be obvious how the more specific options, like just email generate inquiries for, can be done. So let's take this. This is our, let's make this a nice color. This is the one. So what will I do? And this is where I will probably just go underneath in the template here and go, how will I do it? Take 4 hours out of current conversation schedule, block out in work calendar, that's important because the other calendar is too easy to delete things over. There's an issue of mine. Each week from here on out to focus on associate coaching. And you will be more specific with each of these, but I'm just doing it quickly. So when will I do it? Tonight at 5 p.m. What will it take for me? You want to be really specific here. This is where it gets specific. What will it take for me to commit to this action? Already feeling committed, to be honest. It's clear there is massive benefit. Whatever you write for that might be different every time. What could I do to become more committed? I could tell my partner, keep accountable, send off 5 emails tomorrow so that the work finds me rather than me finding it. Put it in work calendar and block it out. Who will I talk to? Not really relevant here. Could I do more? This is an interesting one. Usually the answer is a mixture of yes and no. Here, yes, I could commit to specific actions within those 4 hours. I could add 4 hours rather than create in current schedule. I'm not going to do that because I'm already at my maximum and I know what I'm like. If I push myself too hard, I crash. So, but this is, again, we're just thinking out loud. How many, much, often? So this is like, I'd say weekly, 4 hours, specifically, let's say 2 hours, 2 days a week. Where will I find this? Not relevant here. Some of these questions on will won't be relevant. This is a catch-all list of questions, so you don't have to answer them all if they're not relevant. Who can help me with this? Already talked about that. Hannah, what else could I do? We've already sort of been there. Could I do more? What now? This is really important. I really want you to focus on this. What obstacles might there be, and how might you avoid them? So, what obstacles might there be? I may fill the hours created with admin / petty tasks. That's just one example. There's loads though. How will I avoid this? By creating a solid daily schedule which defines how the 2 hours I have for creating associate connections are spent before the 2 hours starts. So there you go. That's just one example, but then at the end, we've got to the end of the wheel. We really know what we're doing now, so I'm just going to write out for my own benefit. In fact, I'll write it out here. So it's this right here. So let's just make that the same size. Action. Take 4 hours to come into work out and work calendar each week from here on out to focus on associate coaching development. 2 times 2 hour session, 2 hour blocks. So that can go, take 2 times 2 hour blocks, current conversation schedule, work calendar, focus on associate coaching development by 5 PM tonight. Ensure I tell partner to keep me accountable, and I'm not going to do the sending off 5 emails. I don't feel like I need to do that. So, and ensure each block has an agenda before the block starts, because that's going to help me avoid any issues. So there we go. There's a full sort of set done for you there. That's how it works for me generally. Like I say, it's not perfect. It really does change every time, the process, but it is a way to get structured thinking on any issue you have or any goal you have. Stop the anxiety, stop the second guessing, and take action, because that's what's important, is you get some momentum and you get going. And I just love it. It's like, once I've done this thinking, there's no circular thinking bullshit going around in my head. It's just, we're good to go. So send me an email or a WhatsApp message is even better if you want this template. I was going to try and share it with people on OneNote, but they've changed the sharing rules on OneNote now, so I might create a Google Doc instead. But yeah, can't stress enough. Stream of consciousness thinking, give it some structure, write it down or record you speaking the answers, write down all the options, write down key conclusions to what the goal is, write down what you will do, and be exhaustive with the options. And I think you're going to absolutely love, making a habit out of this. Okay, bye.